Welcome to Watch Symposium. I'm Austin. All right, so there was an interesting comment in one of my videos. The comment was from Don Ang, and if you want to read it for yourself, check out the description of this video. I'll put his comment in. Don mentioned safety, and he has just recently bought a Daytona. I think this is the steel bezel Daytona. He's got a 16710 Rolex GMT Master 2 and a datejust. I want to say a 6-digit datejust. So he's got a really nice collection, and he hasn't worn his Daytona out yet. He's still, you know, when you get something new, you kind of want to use it gingerly at first. You know, work your way up to using it, but I think part of the reason is he lives in a third world country, and that's an amazing collection to have in a third world country. And so safety is an issue. And reading his comment made me realize that that's something I really take for granted here in Japan. It's a really safe country here, and it's just not something you have to worry about getting your watch stolen. Now, you know, it can happen. But generally, this is a pretty honest country. In fact, I'll tell you a little allegory. Allegory? No, an anecdote. All right, today I went swimming with my younger daughter. My older daughter came to see, and my wife came as well. And then we had lunch afterwards, and I bought some dress shirts, 2 dress shirts, and we did some grocery shopping, and I was wheeling my younger daughter around in a cart, you know, at the supermarket that they had, and I had hung my shirts up, and we were checking out the whiskey. I was looking at the whiskey section, and so we were going back to meet my wife, and my daughter saw a different stroller, one that had like an Ampan Man theme, and she wanted to switch. So switched, went, met up with my older daughter, my wife. We checked out. We left, walked into the park to catch the bus, and I realized that I'd forgotten my shirts. They were hanging on that original baby cart, and I was able to get them back. I went down. They weren't hanging on the baby cart anymore, but they were at the service center, the information center, waiting for me. And that's just not something that would probably happen in other countries. There's certain countries where that would never happen, and there are other countries where it being turned in and you get it back might happen. Japan's one of those countries where it's likely to happen. Now, it could be the fact that the person that found them didn't have a size 41 neck and a 80-inch sleeve length. I don't know. Probably not. Probably not. In fact, that's me being cynical. That's a whole nother topic. But it goes to show you that this is a very safe country. And part of the reason it's safe is there's not a lot of poverty here, and there's not a lot of desperation. And those two dynamics are linked, desperation and poverty. So I think another factor is that, and it's linked to the lack of poverty and sort of the as my dad would say, upward mobility of the society. You see a lot of luxury goods here. So you see Rolexes, and you see Omegas, and I've probably seen Pateks. They're kind of tough to spot because Pateks are, you know, at least Calatravas are pretty nondescript looking. But for that reason, wearing a nice watch out is not that big of a deal. Okay, it's not that big of a deal. But I still have sort of rules I try to play by, and a big one, and I've broken it a few times. Luckily, it hadn't come back to haunt me. But I try not to drink with my Rolexes on. you know, I've passed out. I've Things have happened to where I've lost consciousness to the extent that I could have had my Rolex taken. Now that's never happened because I've never done that with a Rolex on. But this is more like pre-watch days. I hit the bottle pretty hard at times, and I'm there are situations, distinct situations, where I passed out and I lost a wallet one time. I think it was stolen, and if I'd had a watch at that time, it would have been gone. That's a whole nother story. It was boy, I was probably hadn't been in Japan for 6 months, and I got blitzed, and I have this sort of, I don't know if it's like a real recollection of sort of being like hit or something like that. And I was just like so completely drunk that I think it was some young guys found me, and my wallet was gone. That was over a decade ago. All right. If I'd had a nice watch at the time, it would have been gone. That wallet, by the way, is one I got in Thailand. It was made from what do you call it? Stingray skin. I was sad to see it go because I kind of like that wallet, but I don't know. Is that an inappropriate thing to have stingray skin stuff? I don't know. But that's one time, and there's one other time where I think if I'd had a nice watch on my wrist, it would have been gone. So that's you know, I don't really hit the booze like I did in my younger years, but I know what Bacchus is capable of, and I know when we work together, it can be a dangerous thing. And I don't even want to sort of put myself in that situation. Now, recently, when I say recently, this is probably about a year ago. Yeah, maybe about 8 months ago, 10 months ago. I had my sub on, and I did find myself in sort of a situation where I was drinking. And I separated from the people I was drinking with and went solo. And that's when it gets dangerous, right? I wound up in Shibuya, which is kind of like well, Google Shibuya. It's you know, it's a sort of a nightlife center of Japan, probably where you would want to go drinking. And I wound up at this sort of underground dance club. And I was wasted, and I remember leaving about 4 in the morning, and it was still dark, but I was so drunk, and I was so tired, and I remember finding this little side street and seeing this really inviting stone bench right in front of the store that was closed, and I thought, I'm so tired. I just love to get some shut-eye. I would just love to just lay down, sober up a bit, and I'll make my way home. And I looked down and I saw my sub, and I thought, you can't do this, because once you shut your eyes, it's done, and there's a distinct possibility you're going to wake up without that sub. And what I have, I don't know. It's a terrifying thought. But that sub on my wrist made me get myself to the station, make the long trip back, trudge home, and it was grueling, let me tell you. It was grueling. But my sub got me back because I was so worried about losing it. And, you know, I still had my wits about me. But when you really, you know, there are times where, you know, the bottle may get the better of you. And, you know, I'm all of these stories are just swirling around in my head, and I'm thinking, should I tell this one or that one? No. We'll just leave it at that because that's really how it happens. The story that I was actually thinking of is being slightly drunk at a bar. When I say slightly drunk, I think I mean like incredibly drunk. And I got a shot, and I think I complained about the amount in the shot, and the bartender got a glass and he filled it halfway up with booze. And in retrospect, I realize he was doing me a serious wrong there. He knew that would set me over to the edge of oblivion, and that was, I think, the purpose of that service. And things like that can happen, and the next thing you know, you've blacked out, and you know, you see the carnage on the streets of Tokyo sometimes when you're going home in the morning, or when you're going to work in the morning, of you know, people passed out and people, you know, slumped over asleep. You know, I remember walking past a Mercedes once, and the door was wide open, the driver's side door, and the guy was on the ground, sprawled out, one leg in the in the driver's side of the car, and you know, he was in like various states of undress. I think he was maybe trying to get dressed. I don't know, but you see that, and it happens, and it's sort of part of, well, it's part of irresponsible drinking is what it is. Let's just call it what it is. But it happens, and so that's sort of my rule. Don't go drinking with your watch, okay? Wear a Seiko 5 to go drinking with, because worst case scenario, I lose this, and that's $40 down the drain. This video is going on too long. I went off on a tangent, that whole like drinking thing, but the whole point is that you know, even safe countries through your choices can become dangerous, and things can start out really civil, and you add alcohol into the mix, and that can be dangerous. So ask yourself, do you want to do that, and maybe save yourself potential grief, and wear the beater when you know you're going to be in a situation where alcohol is going to be involved. Now, the most dangerous country where I've worn my Rolex, probably Cambodia. And yeah, I mean, it's Cambodia is one of those countries where it's sort of as dangerous as you want to make it. Again, depending on the choices you make and the time of day that you make them. But I was glad to have my Rolex because, and that was the sub that I took there, because when I think of that trip, I think of the sub. Actually, I also think of the Orient Blue Mako, because that was there as well. And I switched back and forth, and if I knew I was going out and going to be in a potentially risky situation, I would put on the Blue Mako. And I guess the one downside of that is I have experiences, and I don't know, was I wearing the Blue Mako or the sub at the time? Most of the time I was wearing the sub. I wore the sub a lot. And that's kind of the great thing about a watch, and a good watch, and and going traveling with it, because you make memories with the watch, and you'll sort of associate the watch with that trip, and that trip with the watch. And in that sense, you kind of do want to wear a good watch, something meaningful. But again, you got to use judgment and so forth. Anyway, I'll leave you with this. What's the most dangerous place where you've worn your good watch? I'd be likely, I'd like to know. Thanks, Don Eng, for your comment. It certainly got me thinking and talking about things. Yeah, I mean, enjoy your new Daytona, and yeah, maybe don't go drinking with it in that third world country where you're living, wherever that is. Take care. Thanks for watching. See you next time.